Portal is one of many games on a long list of classics that I've wanted my girlfriend to experience. There are a couple of different reasons why I thought Portal would be a good choice for her to play. It's a little different from what she's played before, but it does such a great job easing into things I wasn't too worried about that. More importantly of all though, it's a game she can't look to me for help with. She's gotten a lot better at games since we've started, but when we play something together, she gets a little intimidated. My hope is that having her play games like Portal will help build up some more confidence and help her learn to trust her own abilities. Of course, that was a bit of a tough sell, as getting her to tackle any kind of puzzle that doesn't involve a jigsaw is a chore in and of itself. Fortunately, it didn't take much convincing once she was promised there'd be cake by the end. To start, making her play Portal was an exercise in her own basic problem solving. A lot of times when a game has some form of puzzle, she's quick to turn to me and let me do the heavy thinking for both of us. She's more than capable of solving things on her own, but for years now, games have always been my thing. Whenever we'd come up against a wall in a game, she knew that I'd always figure it out one way or another. So I guess you could say she got a little too comfortable. As the saying goes, you can give a girlfriend a fish and feed her for a day, but if you teach a girlfriend a fish, then she'll actually go fishing with you.
I'm free!
Earlier I mentioned how Portal does a great job easing you into new mechanics. You're introduced to things in a controlled setting, and after the game has taught you to be confident in them, it asks you to use them together. Portal is special because it really feels like you're learning how to play for the entirety of the game, and despite that, it's still a ton of fun.
That's 100% what we have to do. Whee! Oh, that's so fun.
This was something she actually picked up on and pointed out to me. In hindsight, she said it felt like Portal was one big massive tutorial for its final level. When she was going through it for the first time, she assumed she was still in the tutorial due to the aesthetic of the test chambers. She told me it took her an embarrassingly long time to realize that ironically she was already playing the game.
I think I'm in the tutorial, but this also just may be the game. We can't be sure.
The entire concept behind Portal's portals can be a little bit confusing for a newcomer.
What the hell? That is so trippy.
I always loved when she'd walk into a room and just completely lock up. It was like her brain had short-circuited and she needed a reboot. I think for the most part, she started out thinking she understood how the game worked, but as the puzzle started getting more and more complex, she started to realize how little she actually knew.
I am so confused right now.
There are so many fun and interesting ways to interact with the two portals, but it was a lot for her to wrap her head around. On top of that, you have to get more and more creative with how you use them as you advance through the test chambers. It didn't help that her notoriously short-term memory with games would have her forgetting and relearning things multiple times, sometimes within the same level.
What am I supposed to do? Portals.
It seemed like every time she set down Portal for an evening, the first thing she'd say to me was, "Gravity is hard."
Dude, you know what's whack?
What's whack?
Gravity.
She'd get especially hung up on puzzles that involved launching herself. I can't tell you how many crudely drawn diagrams I've made to try and help her understand why technically she's falling out of the wall, but I don't think any of them stuck. Her blank expression told it all. I think I was just making things worse. You fall and then it falls on the wall, it's like you're falling and then the gravity pulls you this way.
This is just a total mindfuck. Oh my god, this is such a cool game.
The other tough pill for her to swallow was that she's not the only thing going through these portals. Bullets, energy balls, cubes, you name it. Several levels involve careful timing of you and these objects passing through the portals. I'm not saying she's got bad rhythm, but I couldn't help but notice that most of her deaths were from getting her wires crossed and ending up toasted.
What the hell just happened? Oh, my portal was still there. Whoops.
I think she appreciated that she could set her own pace while solving these puzzles. Her process could be as slow as it needed to as long as it worked for her. With that being said, her famous two blunders were always either grossly overthinking a situation or not thinking outside the box enough, basically ricocheting from one extreme to the other. When she got hung up on a chamber, the main question she had to answer was whether or not she was messing something up or if she was trying to do something that was simply not possible.
That doesn't work. Either.
One funny comparison I noticed between her solving a puzzle in a game and me solving a puzzle in a game is how we go about working through it. When I get stumped on a puzzle, I tend to sit still and go over all my different options or resources. Then I'll usually run through them in my head. She's the complete opposite, where she takes a much more hands-on approach. She likes to act out each and every combination and scenario for every single problem until miraculously she finds herself where she needs to be.
Whoa! I did it! I don't really know how I did it, but I did it.
What might be even funnier is that even when she'd seemingly exhausted all her options, she just wouldn't sit still. Instead, she'd repetitively jump through whatever portal was closest to her about 100 times over, knowing damn well it wasn't ever going to change the outcome. I'd walk in on her doing this and scratch my head, wondering if there was a method to the madness or if she was just completely insane. We may never know.
She's making me dizzy.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Since she was playing by herself, any and all pressure of making it look neat was gone. Therefore, a lot of gameplay was clumsy and haphazard. What you ended up with was some extremely clunky homemade solutions to otherwise simple problems.
Sleep mode activated.
But at the end of the day, a solution's a solution. It's not as much about how she got there as it was that she made it.
Shh, I think I just messed that up. No! That one's permanent? Shit. Oh wait, no, we're okay. No, we're not. Shit, okay. Ah, I gotta start over. Ah! Is it good? Is it good? Yo, I got it.
All things said, it's important not to lose sight of the fact this is a game. And at the end of the game, what's more important than winning is having fun while doing it. She's always been good about not getting frustrated with these things, and it really benefits her in Portal. Sometimes, just messing around in the room was the real solution to the puzzle all along.
Whoa. Oh, I somehow made it through to the other side.
Once you start building some confidence in Portal is when your game really starts to open up a lot. There's something satisfying about working over an obstacle using things that you taught yourself. Portal has an incredibly addicting gameplay loop because every time you make it to the elevator, you get hit with a little rush of dopamine. That burst of happiness from finishing a level is just enough to convince you to dip your toe into the next one, regardless of how long or difficult it was.
Whee! How do they know?
My girlfriend's guilty of being a little too trusting in games, sometimes to a fault. It was especially a big disadvantage in Portal because GLaDOS likes to get in your head.
Any contact with the chamber floor will result in an unsatisfactory mark on your official testing record, followed by death. Good luck.
Things start out simple enough with her giving instructions and being more or less helpful. But as things went on, she started to notice that not listening to the instructions was the test in some chambers.
They just keep making shit up. Like, they just keep pulling shit out of their asses.
Her suspicions of GLaDOS obviously weren't necessarily unfounded, but she's used to following instructions to a T, especially in games. As you can imagine, it would catch her off guard when she was blatantly lied to.
Our previous statement suggesting that we would not monitor this chamber was an outright fabrication.
They just, like, say whatever the fuck they want, and then they're like, this is a required test protocol. I'm like, you're just making this up as you go, aren't you?
All of this worked to cultivate her mistrust for GLaDOS, and eventually it all came to a head in the game's most difficult test chamber.
Oh, it has a heart!
This weighted companion cube will accompany you through the test chamber. Please take care of it.
Yes, the hardest puzzle in the game wasn't even a puzzle. It was overcoming her feelings for an inanimate object.
No, it's my cube.
She initially thought that the companion cube was also a test where she was supposed to think of a way to save the cube.
There has to be another way.
Unfortunately, after trying every possible outcome there was, she realized there was no way forward but to torch the cube.
I'm sorry, companion cube, I promised you.
You
No!
euthanized your faithful companion cube more quickly than any test subject on record. Congratulations.
I am positive that that was a goddamn lie.
Now, after an incident such as this, certain questions arise. Leaving aside for the moment why God feels the need to take away everything that I love.
GLaDOS was about to learn a very hard lesson. Killing the girlfriend's favorite character is what unleashes her final form. After being inflicted with severe emotional damage, she was more than ready to be done with the simulation and this manipulative AI. Also, she was promised cake.
Cake!
Of course, if you played Portal, you know that things aren't exactly over once you finish Chamber 19.
2 degrees Kelvin. Rest assured that there is absolutely no chance of a dangerous equipment malfunction prior
What?
to your victory candescence. Thank you for participating in this Aperture Science computer-aided
Wait,
enrichment activity.
I'm about to die? Oh, hell no. We're getting the fuck out of here. Okay. Huh.
Place the device on the ground, then lie on your stomach with your arms at your sides.
Well, I don't really know how to drop it, so.
See, like I said, way too trusting. Luckily, she can't sit still.
Shit. No, whoops. Wait a second.
Pretended we were going to murder you. We are very, Very happy for your success.
Oh,
Now she's thinking with portals, albeit a little late in the game.
okay.
In some ways, the final level feels like where the real game starts. Everything you've learned up until this point gets used in combination in order to pose the greatest challenge thus far. You've got everything you need to complete this section, whether you know it or not.
Oh my god. I didn't know I could crush this entire game.
The symbolic significance of your escape was something I hoped she'd catch on to, as retreading previous levels but now equipped with new tools and knowledge shows how far you've come as a player. Similarly, she herself has come a long way too. She knows a lot more about games than when things started. With no instructions other than to get out, it was all up to her to figure out how to make it happen. By the end of it all, one final boss fight was waiting for her, and along with it, the opportunity to finally get revenge for her companion cube. The only thing standing between her and victory was her most difficult challenge yet, a time limit.
Oh fuck.
Even though they give you way more than enough time to finish this, the fact a timer was ever present sealed her fate.
Oh my god. I don't have time.
I'll put you on. That's how dumb you sound. You've been wrong about everything.
Shit.
I have no doubt in my mind that if that timer didn't exist, she probably could have knocked the whole sequence out in like 2 minutes flat. But she's always been her own worst enemy.
Do you smell something burning? Where are we going?
Oh my god.
All the while GLaDOS was busy hurling insults, she unwittingly gave my girlfriend the last tool she needed to beat the game: motivation.
I invited your best friend, the companion cube. Of course, he couldn't come because you murdered him.
Stop.
That was for the fucking companion cube. Holy shit. Uh-oh. Ah! What just happened? Yo, I'm outside! Hell yeah! Am I alive though?
Thank you for assuming the party escort submission position.
Am I alive? Shit.
After all that, I think she's ready for some cake, and a teammate. What do you think?